لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة، وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا، حتى تسكنه أرضك توا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. زيارة آل ياسين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سلام على آل ياسين. السلام عليك يا داعي الله ورباني آياته. السلام عليك يا باب الله وديان دينه. السلام عليك يا خليفة الله وناصر حقه. السلام عليك يا حجة الله ودليل إرادته. السلام عليك يا تالي كتاب الله وترجمانه. السلام عليك في آناء ليلك وأطراف نهارك. السلام عليك يا بقية الله في أرضه. السلام عليك يا ميثاق الله الذي أخذه ووكده. السلام عليك يا وعد الله الذي ضمنه. السلام عليك أيها العلم المنسوب والعلم المسبوب والغوث والرحمة الواسعة، وعدا غير مكذوب. السلام عليك حين تقوم. السلام عليك حين تقعد. السلام عليك حين تقرأ وتبين. السلام عليك حين تصلي وتقنت. السلام عليك حين تركع وتسجد. السلام عليك حين تهلل وتكبر. السلام عليك حين تحمد وتستغفر. السلام عليك حين تصبح وتمسي. السلام عليك في الليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى. السلام عليك أيها الإمام المأمون. السلام عليك أيها المقدم المأمول. السلام عليك بجوامع السلام. أشهدك يا مولاي إني أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله لا حبيب إلا هو وأهله. وأشهدك يا مولاي أن عليا أمير المؤمنين حجته والحسن حجته والحسين حجته وعلي بن الحسين حجته ومحمد بن علي حجته وجعفر بن محمد حجته وموسى بن جعفر حجته وعلي بن موسى حجته ومحمد بن علي حجته وعلي بن محمد حجته والحسن بن علي حجته. واشهد أنك حجة الله أنتم الأول والآخر وأن رجعتكم حق لا ريب فيه يوم لا ينفع نفسا إيمانها لم تكن آمنت من قبل أو كسبت في إيمانها خيرا وأن الموت حق وأن ناكرا ونكيرا حق. واشهد أن النشر حق والبعث حق وأن الصراط حق والمرصاد حق والميزان حق والحشر حق والحساب حق والجنة والنار حق والوعد والوعيد بهما حق. يا مولاي شقي من خالفكم وسعد من طاعكم فاشهد على ما أشهدتك علي وأنا ولي لك بريء من عدوك. فالحق ما رضيتم والباطل ما استختم والمعروف ما أمرتم به والمنكر ما نهيتم عنه. فنفسي مؤمنة بالله وحده لا شريك له وبرسوله وبالأمير المؤمنين وبكم يا مولاي أولكم وآخركم ونصرتي معدة لكم ومودتي خالصة لكم آمين آمين. صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والضحى والليل إذا سجى ما ودعك ربك وما قلى وللآخرة خير لك من الأولى ولسوف يعطيك ربك فترضى. ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى فأما اليتيم فلا تقهر وأما السائل فلا تنهر وأما بنعمة ربك فحدث. صدق الله العلي العظيم. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. الفاتحة مع الإخلاص والصلوات.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Imam Hussein Islamic Center, and as always it is our privilege, honor and pleasure to host everybody here this evening, whether you're here in the crowd with us or joining us online. Thank you very much, and inshallah together we send our condolences to the 12th Holy Imam and to the Holy Prophet of Islam on the demise and the Shahadat of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, our 6th Holy Imam, the fountain of knowledge for everything that we have today. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq is the source and is the reason that we as a people have progressed in the manner that we have, whether it's agriculture, sciences, mathematics, any sort of technology, and even in biology, any subject that you can think of. The source comes back to Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam for the opportunities that he had to teach thousands upon thousands of people at a time in his classes from all over the world, from all backgrounds, from all religions, all creeds, all races, everywhere. Let us offer our condolences with a combined salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ahsan, Brother Ali, beautiful recitation. Inshallah, we have the opportunity to hear from you more in the future as well. A brief comment about upcoming programs. Inshallah, this coming Friday night, so in 5 days' time, inshallah, we'll have a program here for the birth anniversary of Sayyidah Fatima al-Masuma, and then we leave you to enjoy the rest of your long weekend. There will be some programs after that as well, and Dhul Qa'dah is coming up and then disappearing, and then Dhul Hajjah is coming up and disappearing, and we have Muharram starting approximately on the 9th or 10th of August, inshallah. So not long to go. So here's your approximately 9 or 10 week warning from here. Inshallah, we'll see you during the programs of Muharram. Inshallah, you'll join with me with 3 of your best, warmest and loudest salawat to welcome our dear brother in faith and His Eminence Sheikh Mohammed Mehdi for the main lecture tonight. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله، اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Tonight, as you know, is the night, and it's the actual night, where we commemorate the martyrdom of the sixth Imam, al-Imam Ja'far ibn Mohammed al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. And we give our condolences to our master, al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan, and to all the believers for this night. And as Hajj Ali mentioned in his introduction about us and the fact that we're indebted to this Imam, and not only with regard to us the believers, but even all the other sects of Islam are indebted. I mentioned last night in a discussion I had that if you take a look at Ahmad ibn Hanbal, the head of the Hanbali sect, he was a student of a Shafi'i, and a Shafi'i was a student of Malik, and Malik was a student of Nu'man, Abu Hanifa, and Abu Hanifa was a student of Imam al-Sadiq. So all the four sects of the Sunni Islam are indebted to Ja'far ibn Muhammad salawatullahi alayh. So everyone's indebted to him. Even as Hajj Ali mentioned, the world of agriculture, the world of sciences, everything you can imagine links back to the Imam. And there's a whole study on, and from many ulama that will mention, you want to go through a subject, you'll find it was mentioned by the Imam before it was discovered later. Even if you want to look at the laws that we live by today, and it's not uncommon for people to take other people's discoveries. You know, people find that with Thomas Edison, and they found that with Alexander Graham Bell and others, where they took something that wasn't really theirs. So it's not an uncommon practice in humanity. Allah says in the Quran, بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. Throughout your life, from the day you were born until the day you die, you are in an eternal struggle, a conflict within for dunya and akhirah. It's constant, it never goes. You never conquer it. You're never in charge. You only begin every day and you struggle until the day ends. Whether your dunya overcomes your akhirah or your akhirah overcomes your dunya. Because they don't agree in any way whatsoever. A dunya has set demands and the akhirah has set demands. The dunya is good when it's used for what it is. For example, you've heard the proverb, fire is a good servant but a bad master. See, fire in a controlled area where I want to cook, or you have a gas heater, or anything where you're using it for warmth, you're using it to make food, and you're in control, it's good. But when fire takes control, you're in trouble. This is when you have nothing other than to get out of there as soon as possible. The dunya is the same. As long as it's controlled, you have nothing to worry about. The moment the dunya takes control is where your problem is. And this conflict remains within. Allah says in the Quran, the verse I mentioned, بَلْ تُؤْثِرُونَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. Do people seek, or do they want? They want to obtain this world? And then he gives you the answer as to why you shouldn't. وَالْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى. Firstly, the hereafter, he says, is what? Number one, it's khayrun, it's better. وَأَبْقَى, it's enduring, it's it's everlasting. It's more lasting than the dunya. In fact, there is absolutely no comparison between the two. And then he mentions, this isn't the first time we've told you this. It's not like when you come and attend a lecture, it's not the first time you're hearing what you're hearing. إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. We've told you this miraran, over and over and over again, even in the books of Abraham and Moses. Ibrahim or Musa, we mentioned this. See, the conflict that existed between those that ruled and the Imams was a conflict between dunya and akhirah. The khulafa that existed, they didn't fear that the Imam was going to overthrow them. At no point would they look at the Imam and say that the Imam's going to overthrow us and take our power. They knew the Imam wouldn't use deception, wouldn't use guile, wouldn't use any unorthodox methods to remove them, because if they did, they would have done that right from the start. The first prophet would have did this. From the beginning, Adam had Habil. Habil knew Qabil was going to kill him. Habil would have killed Qabil and ended it. He said, hold on, Qabil is going to kill me, I'll end this. It's not going to go down. I'll make sure of that doesn't happen. And so on and so forth. Every single person would have done the same thing, and they would have ended everything. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he arrived at Karbala, had the opportunity, knowing he was going to kill there, he'd subdue this army that was tired. Instead, he gave them order, isn't that right? And watered down their horses. Why would he do that? Why didn't he just kill them? Because the message of Islam, the test, Allah Azza wa Jal can overcome everyone. The test must go on. The test is perpetual. The test is until it all ends. So the conflict here with Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam and the Khulafa is for this. From we go to the origin between the families of Banu Umayyah, because the first half of Imam's life, Banu Umayyah were ruling. The problem with Banu Umayyah and Banu Hashim was Banu Umayyah said, Kadhab Allah, or Banu Hashim said, Sadaq Allah. The family of Rasulullah said, Allah is truthful. The family of Banu Umayyah said, Allah has lied. That's the origin of it. One was for the dunya, the other was for the akhirah. But there was something that happened for us today to be able to get all the information we have. Why is it almost half, if not more than half, of all our hadith, when someone gets up and narrates a narration, what do they say? An Abi Abdullah al-Sadiq. Qala Abu Abdullah al-Sadiq. An Ja'far ibn Mohammed al-Sadiq. Don't they say this? The most of the narrations are mentioned what took place at his time that didn't take place at other time. There was a transition of power. It did not happen with any of the other Imams. Where the transition of power from one system of government to another. See, after Yazid ibn Muawiyah had committed the tragedy of Karbala, and among the other tragedies that he did in Medina and Mecca, Umayyah's stock had dropped. Banu Umayyah's stock had dropped. So they began to dwindle. Just like you see now a lot of the ruling powers, you can see when they're falling apart. You know, the Soviet Union, they peaked, for example, during Stalin's time, and as it started to fall away, and you could see right at the end, Mikhail Gorbachev, you knew it was over. It was on its last legs. And before you knew it, you saw Boris Yeltsin on vodka every single night. You could just tell exactly what was happening. And you could see how it was falling apart. Like you see with the United States, you can see it. You know, Trump, Biden, it's like every time they bring someone in, they're a bit more lobotomized. They're missing a few more brain cells. Before you know it, God knows what will be the next one, and eventually the American empire will fall. Banu Umayyah was the same. It started to dwindle, fall apart, one caliph after another, till it got to a caliph. His name was Marwan ibn Muhammad ibn Marwan ibn al-Hakam. He was the last caliph of Banu Umayyah that ruled. And this Marwan, the grandson of Marwan ibn al-Hakam, just to let you know who this person was, and when I say to let you introduce you to how vile he was, let me introduce who he was, to introduce to what kind of tree he came from, al-Shajar al-Mal'una, to let you know who was Marwan ibn al-Hakam. He's the one that's called Al-Wazagh ibn Al-Wazagh. He's referred to by the Prophet, called him, Wazagh is, you've seen Bobres, the gecko. In Lebanon, you see there's Bobres, there's yellow lizards. Yeah, that's what he was called, Al-Wazagh ibn Al-Wazagh. That's what he was, a little gecko, the son of a gecko. That's who is the grandfather of this Khalif. Just to give you an idea of who he was. He was killed because Banu Umayyah got into a battle with this new group called Banu al-Abbas. This new Banu al-Abbas, they came with the idea of we're reformists. We're here to get the haqq of Ahl al-Bayt. Ahl al-Bayt's been oppressed. We're here to take the haqq, and we're here to rule. And they ran with this. They ended up the first one amongst Banu al-Abbas, just to let you know, sometimes you want to get a breath of fresh air. What do you want to hear? You want to hear good news. Someone actually comes up and says, I'm here to reform. I'm here to give you glad tidings. I'm here to change the way that you live. No, we didn't get this. The first ruler, his name was Abdullah. Let's call him Abu al-Abbas. Do you know what his moniker was? What his nickname was? As-Saffah. Do you know what As-Saffah means? The one who sheds blood. Imagine that was his nickname. His moniker was As-Saffah. Even if you look it up in Sunni books, his name is As-Saffah. And he was happy with this title, that he was the one that shed blood. That's a title that was given to him, the one that sheds blood. Sorry, I take that back. They were happy with this title. I'm not sure if he was one that carried this title, but that's a title they gave him. Because I know with other Khalifs like Mansur, the next one, he was called Ad-Dawaniqi, but he hated that title. Just like Abu Jahl didn't like being called Abu Jahl. And I'll explain what they mean. That's why they didn't like them. But I don't know if Abu al-Abbas liked this title, but they were happy enough to put it in there because he was a killer. He killed off Banu Umayyah. They moved all the way towards Morocco and these regions where they'd move as far as they could to the west of North Africa and rule in these places. And Marwan ibn Mohammed Marwan fled to Egypt. He sent a group of people to fight him. They killed him and they fed his tongue to the cats. That's how he finished off Marwan. So As-Saffah began to rule. During this time where there was a transition, the Imam was able to what? Give narrations and teach. That was the period where he was able to give all the instructions that he did. As-Saffah, when he took power, he summoned for the Imam to come from Medina to Iraq to see him. So they brought the Imam. He sat with the Imam. He spoke a few things with the Imam and he said, you know what? He seems like a respectable man. Doesn't seem like he's going to be an issue. So he sent him back to Medina. But the thing is, As-Saffah didn't live for that long. If you look, a lot of times we sit and we think of rulers and you think, how long did they live for? How long did Yazid, for example, live for? A lot of people might think Yazid must have been an older man. A lot of these guys, they died. They ruled and died at young ages. They weren't like Tutankhamun, but close enough. They were pretty young people. As-Saffah lived, he died when he was 33. He wasn't that old. Young, and he died. Who came after Saffah? His brother. His name was Al-Mansur. When I say Al-Mansur, that wasn't his actual name. They used to take titles. Banu al-Abbas were known for giving themselves a moniker. They'd say, my title is Al-Mansur, the one that is given victory by Allah. Al-Mansur, Billah, Allah Yunsru. And I mentioned, we used to say a joke about this, when they used to say, like, each one gave a title. One said his name as was Al-Mu'taz, Billah, Al-Wathiq, Billah. So we said there should be one called Na'udhu Billah, because, just to fit the system with the names that they've been bringing up. So Al-Mansur ruled for 22 years. And during those years, he made the Imam's life a living hell. Mansur al-Dawaniqi, and the reason they called him Dawaniqi comes from the word danik, which it talks about the dirham, the coin, because he was so stingy. They used to call him Dawaniqi, that he would hold on to even the silver coin. It It was so hard to get a cent out of this man because of how stingy he was. So anyway, with Mansur, of the 22 years he ruled, for these 12 years he ruled over Imam al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. So when it came to the Imam's rule, on at least 5 or more occasions, Mansur attempted to kill the Imam. And this is where you will find signs were shown, and the question is, why am I mentioning this with regard to conflict between Hayat al-Dunya and Akhirah? You will understand Mansur saw things that would wake you up. He would send, in one occasion, for example, and the times he would send for the Imam, he wouldn't summon the Imam in the day. You know, send him a letter, could you please come tomorrow morning? No. It would be during a drunken stupor. He'd be up all night and he'd be drinking all night heavily. He'd be so drunk, and then he would say, go get Ja'far Muhammad and bring him to me. So, and the way that they would do it, in many occasions it was different. They would drag him and bring him. In one occasion when he had brought him in, before he brought him in, he had one of his guards, his name was Al-Rabi'. Al-Rabi' is the one that narrates a lot of these narrations, because Al-Rabi' was one of the people that was, you would say, one of the sushis. He was not sure if he was with Mansur, and he was not sure if he was with Imam al-Sadiq. He was in between. He didn't know which way he wanted. What Imam Ali alayhi salam would call a'war. Imam Ali alayhi salam, one man said to him, I like you, I love you, and I love the first and the second. And the Imam said, Anta a'war. He said, you're one-eyed. He says, either you will see or either you will become blind. You can't tell someone, look, I love you, but I love your enemy. You know, like in today's day, someone turns around and says, look, I like Sayyid Hassan, but I like Benjamin Netanyahu. Just to give you a nice idea. Who would say that, honestly? You can't like two people that are different. You can't say, I like this person, and they're enemies. How can you like them? How can you be and not necessarily for believers and unbelievers, even amongst unbelievers. You know, I can't say, for example, you know, someone turns around and says that they like, for example, Japan and like China at the same time, the rulers of Japan and China, because of the hatred between the two countries. You know, you might have intermarriages between them, but that's not the issue. You can't love both systems that oppose each other. Imagine when it's religion, haq and batil. Imam, hujjatullahi ala al-khalq. There's no doubt about Imam al-Sadiq and who he is. It's mentioned by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam who the Imam is. So he was stuck in between, and Mansur said, I'm going to bring Abu Abdullah into my house. When he enters, I will talk to him. When you see me clap my hands together, he says, you strike his neck. He says, I've prepared a sword for you. So basically, what they used to get was what they called, it was like a leather rug. This is where in the old days they used to execute on a leather. So he put the leather rug ready for him. He said, you bring him there and you strike him, the sword and the rug are ready. So the Imam walked in, and Mansur is lying down. He gets up because he's off his face. He's very drunk. So he gets up, he sees the Imam, and then he starts to talk to the Imam. As he's talking, the Imam begins to say words. This is a very important point because he's whispering some words. And he says these words as he's saying. Mansur then asks him a question and he says, go. So then he says to Rabi', take him home. Rabi' takes him home. As he takes him home, he says, he says to the Imam, did you see the sword and the leather rug? And the Imam says, yes. He says, these were prepared for you tonight. This is what you came for. He said, but when you walked in, you were saying things. I could see your lips moving. The Imam said, when I walked in, I could see the evil intent in Mansur's face. So I said what? Hasbi Allah. He says, Hasbunallah وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلِ. He said, حسبي من هو حسبي حسبي من لم يزل حسبي حسبي من كان مذ كنت لم يزل حسبي حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. This is the importance of dua. You know, sometimes we're in a situation in our lives and we have our backs to the wall and we're calling millions of people to help us out. You call everyone because you think the help is with them. You know, you think they're the people that will help us. Call this person, come and help me, that person. The only one that can help you in every situation is Allah Azza wa Jal. So the Imam walks in, he sees the evil intent. What does he say? When he says, when you say Hasbunallah, when you say Hasbunallah, it means I am, all what I have, I rely on Allah. I've placed everything upon Allah. That's why we say Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. That I've placed my affairs in the hands of Allah, and Allah is sufficient. He's the best to place your hands in. Because Allah has no one above him. It's not like Allah will say, listen, I'll look at your file, but I've got to ask the boss upstairs, see how he helps me. You know, sometimes when you call a company, they answer the phone, you say, can I please speak to the manager? Because you know that this guy is only a minion that you're talking to, probably in the subcontinent talking to you over the phone. Whereas in the case of God, he's no middle person. And it's a direct route to Allah Azza wa Jal. There's no stops in between. I talk to Allah Azza wa Jal directly. So Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he is showing you his reliance upon Allah, that Allah answers. Allah sari' al-hisab. Allah is quick and he's swift with account. Allah answers your prayer. Allah is mujib al-da'wat. He's the one that answers the prayers. So then Ar-Rabi' returns to the Imam, and this is the point I will get to. Let me talk, we'll go back to this point because I just want to talk about another story within where he's summoned. And another time he sends Ar-Rabi' to go get Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Rabi' takes his son Mohammed ibn Rabi' and he says to his son that Amir al-Mu'mineen, about Mansur, has asked that you go in not through knocking on the door. They put a ladder from outside, climb over the wall of the house and grab the Imam in whatever state he's in and bring him out. Imagine that. Security you have in your home. The safety you feel when you go to sleep. Who here doesn't feel safe when they go to sleep? But when you go to sleep, do you think someone's going to rock up and rip you out of your bed and drag you in for questioning? So Muhammad ibn Rabi' says, I climbed the ladder and I came down. And I found the Imam praying. But even there was one, let's look at one positive point he had. He didn't do anything until the Imam finished his prayer. See, this is one positive point you can find in this evil man, that he didn't do anything till the Imam finished. You know, Abdul Rahman ibn Murad, he wouldn't even wait for Amir al-Mu'mineen to finish his prayer. He waited for the Imam to finish his prayer, and then he grabbed him. The Imam was only wearing like a garment, like what you'd call a shirt, a long shirt, and something like a izar that was tied under to explain. He's in his own house. So the Imam said to him, can I at least get dressed to come? And he said, no, as you are. He said, can I at least wash myself, at least before I come? He said, as you are, and he drags him out. The Imam has no cover on his head, and he's barefoot, and he brings him in a humiliated fashion towards the house of Al-Mansur al-Dawaniki. Even the Imam asked him, can I sit and supplicate? He won't let him. So he brings him into the house. This time Mansur himself wants to kill the Imam, but he stops. Once again, the Imam has some words that he mentions beneath his breath. Now, when Ar-Rabi' asked Mansur, you were intent on all these times to kill him, what prevented you? This is a question. What prevented you from killing him? At times he says, I saw a man standing behind him, and this man would say, I am Rasulullah. If you touch my grandson, it will be the last thing you will do. At other times, you would see an angel. One time he says he sees a beast, he says Katanin, which is like a dragon beast. And it says, if you touch the Imam, I will split you in two. These are the words of Mansur, not someone telling you I saw. Mansur says this is what I saw. Now here's the question that you always ask yourself, okay? Very important question. When he saw all these things that instilled the fear in him, why didn't he just believe? Isn't that a question people ask? All right, he saw all this. Why didn't he just believe? I remember once when I was at school, in primary school, and we used to do back then, there was scripture classes. We didn't have the scripture classes, at least alhamdulillah now we have Shia scripture classes. We used to attend normal Anglican, you know, these Gideons come in, the ones that hand out the Bibles in the hotels. You know, when you see the hotel Bibles, it's, if you open it up, it says Gideons. The Gideons were an English, Anglo-Saxon people, anyone that belongs to non-Catholic church, and they'd hand out these books. They would teach us. And one day, one of the teachers, he was well versed. He was talking about how the people worshipped the golden calf with Moses. So I asked him, and I said, didn't you say he split the sea for them? And he said, yes. And I said, he saved them from Pharaoh? And he said, yes. Okay, how could they worship other than God after they saw all this? So he said to me, well, you know, after you see a lot of, at first, the first time you see some trick from someone or some form of your magic, at first you are shocked. The second time, you're still a bit shocked. And after a while, it becomes mundane, becomes normal. Everyone's doing it. Okay? That was his response. And this is pretty much with everything in your life. When you are in fear, you're in fear for what moment? The moment while you are in fear. That's why, if you look at how many people when they go to prison, you know, you hear these people, they go to jail, what's the first thing they do? A lot of them become religious in jail. Why? They start praying on time. Why? There's nothing else to do. All you got's God. You got God and you got 4 walls and a silver dunny. What else are you going to do? You're going to have to worship God. You're stuck in prison, you got nothing else. The second I come out of prison, then I decide, is this God still applicable outside? Or is God only doing time? When do I deal with God? So I come out, how am I going to deal with my Creator? My problem's not a big problem anymore. I'm out of prison now. And Allah Azza wa Jal gives us in the Quran the parable of those that ride the boat, Rakab al-Safina. Have you ever been out at sea and you're in rough weather? You know, honestly, who is here who's been in rough weather or has been through severe turbulence? You know that turbulence where you think this plane's going down. Anyone that's been to Iran and traveled in a Topolov will know exactly what I'm talking about. You go in a Topolov, you might as well give your wasiyah to everyone before you jump on the plane. You might as well say, listen, I really cared about you, please forgive me for what's going on, before you jump on that plane. Because you don't know where that plane's going. Single motor, that motor fails, there's not a second motor, trust me. Okay, and the whole thing's just rattling the whole way. Or imagine, like a lot of these, if you go to these airports, like, you know, once, especially like there's a lot of turbulence in Heathrow Airport. When you're coming in, there's a lot of turbulence when you go into London. There's a lot of turbulence going in. If you feel this, there's a moment, I was with one of my friends and we're on the plane, he's a Sayyid, Ma'am, and everyone's watching something or playing a game or whatever. And he was reading the Quran, the whole flight. So I said to him, MashaAllah, include us in your dua. You've been reading the Quran the whole way. He said, do you think I'm reading it because it's the Quran? He said, we are so close to death while we're in the plane. We are so close the whole way. Anything fails, we're finished. So the whole moment I'm in a boat, I'm in a plane, at any point my life can end. Why is it when I land, I say, as what's he called? What's he did? I think it was Hisham ibn Abdul Malik. Hisham ibn Abdul Malik was one of the Khalifs of Banu Umayyah. They used to call him Hamam al-Masjid. He used to always be in the mosque praying and he wouldn't even step on an ant. The second he became the Khalif, He actually took the Quran and said, هَذَا فِرَاقٌ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنِكَ. This is where our relationship ends. Why is it when I finish the danger, I say to God, it was good knowing you. Thanks for helping me in the problem. But now you go your way, I go mine. This is why when I sit and I look at Mansur ad-Dawaniki, that's what I need to understand. Firstly, once the fear is no longer there, the hypocrite only turns to God during a moment of fear. Once the fear is removed, everything goes back to normal. When there's fear, people say, let's pray. They turn to God. You know, once things go wrong, have you seen hypocrites? When things go wrong, they start saying, let's pray to God. Let's turn to God. But when it's gone, that goes with it. Another reason is authority and might. You know, you meet a lot of people there in organized crime, or they're criminals. They like it. They can't leave it. You know, when Harun al-Abbasi, al-Ghair al-Rashid, or they used to call him Rashid, I don't know how he got that. He was a habitual gambler. Harun was after Mansur. Once he sent Imam al-Qadhim home, he didn't send him with a guard or a soldier. He called his son Ma'mun, Abdullah al-Ma'mun. He said, you take him home. Abdullah al-Ma'mun said, I am the son of the Khalif. You want me to take someone home? I'm not a servant. And Harun said, take him, because this is the man that your father sits under his mambar. Your father, the Khalif, sits under no one's mambar. I sit under this man's mambar. So Ma'mun was cunning. He said to his father, if you sit under his mambar, why is he not the Khalif? If he's better than you, why is he not the Khalif of Islam? And then he says, Ya bunayya al-hukmu aqim wa inna za'tani. Firstly, he says, al-hukmu aqim, that authority is barren. In other words, if I rule, I have no children. I'm the boss. He says, wa inna za'tani fi mulki. If you even try and challenge me for my authority, لَضَرَبْتُ الَّتِي فِيهِ عَيْنَيْكَ. I will strike the thing that holds your eyes. In other words, I'll cut your head off. If it's your own son, you say that to your own son, imagine that. I'll decapitate you, you say that to your own son. How? Because you love authority. When you're in charge, it's very hard to let go. See, a lot of people, I remember when I was a youth, a lot of the youth, they used to watch movies like Scarface. They sit and watch a movie and they want to be a gangster. Their whole life they want to be a criminal. They want to be, why? Because they want to live large. They want to have all the flash cars. They want to live this powerful life. They don't watch the end of the movie. They just watch the beginning. They don't watch what really happens to a drug dealer. Where a drug dealer actually ends. Where their life ends. And at school even, and this is a funny thing, at school, they teach them from a young age, don't snitch. And people always say, don't snitch. It's a really funny thing, because everyone snitches. Everyone dobs. There's no honor amongst thieves. If they didn't snitch, people would be in jail. That's why you see someone, I remember someone has set up a meth lab. A meth lab. 3 months later, he was on the street. How'd you get on the street? He said, I had a really good lawyer. I said, you can't hide evidence. You roll on someone, you get out. That's how it is. It's a lie. It's just a story. They keep saying the law of omerta, the law of silence. There's no such thing. Everyone wants power. Everyone wants this great life. And that's another reason why they don't turn to God. Because if I turn to God, I can't have this. If I turn to God, I can't live this ruthless lifestyle. And if I love something, like when someone loves someone, they're willing to forego everyone around them to marry this person. Imagine people that love power. And people love power. Everyone loves to be in charge. Everyone wants to be the boss. Everyone wants their word heard. But there's only one authority, and that's Allah Azza wa Jal. And He says, this authority that I have is with my messenger. And the authority that's with my messenger is with the Imam. As-salamullah alayhim ajma'in. So this is what we're talking about. So Mansur had a constant conflict. He would see the truth, and that would remind him of the hereafter, and then he would feel, how would he feel? At that moment, he'd have a moment of like an epiphany. He'd have a moment of clarity, and he would say to Imam al-Sadiq, he would say to him, لما لا تخشانا كما يخشانا الناس. Why don't you desire us? Why don't you like us like the people like us? You know, these caliphs actually think, that the people actually like them. You imagine like Saddam. Saddam actually thought people liked him. He actually thought the Iraqi people loved him. They didn't love you. They were petrified. So Mansour was like a Saddam. These were these days of Saddams of those times. Well, so he says to the Imam, why don't you like me? Why don't you desire being around me like the people desire? And the Imam said to him, Laysa lana min ad-dunya. We don't have anything in dunya. He says, Laysa lana min ad-dunya ma nakhafahu mink. We don't have anything in the dunya that I'm afraid that you might take off me. Wa laysa laka min al-akhirah ma. He says, we don't have anything in the akhirah. Ma narjuhu mink. That there is not laysa laka min al-akhirah. You don't have anything in the akhirah that you can give me. Was a friendship with someone. I need to get some benefit. He says, you can't benefit me in the akhirah, nor am I afraid that you'll take something of my dunya, because I don't have anything you want. And then Mansour said, hold on. He said, tashabuna litansahuna. Become our friend so you can advise us. And the Imam said, man arada al-akhirah fala yashabuk. Whoever wants a hereafter would never become your friend. وَمَنْ أَرَادَ الدُّنْيَا فَلَا يَنْصَحُكَ. And whoever wants this world to live would never advise you. Imagine you advise a tyrant. Would you imagine you said to a tyrant, I disagree with what you just said? And that's all she wrote. It'd be over. That's the last. That'd be actually on your epitaph. That's what they'd write on your gravestone. I didn't agree with it. It's like this man, a Sheikh with Sheikh Yuthqar, this man during the elections, in the Middle East, Saddam's elections basically used to say Saddam or other than Saddam. Or yes or no, they would say. So this guy went into, and these elections would be held every, 10 or whatever, 15 years or whatever. And one guy actually went in and said, I'm an old man now, I'm near the end of my life. I'm just going to vote against him. And he voted against Saddam, and he handed in the ballot paper. When he came out, he told his friend what he'd done. His friend goes, go back, change it. You'll get killed. They'll know who it is. So he convinced him, so he went back in and said, listen, I want to change my vote. The people there said, are you the guy that voted against Saddam? He said, yes. They said, don't worry, we changed it because we'd be killed too. This is the way it was. You could never stand against the ruling authority. There's no way you could stand against the ruling authority and get away with it. And that's how it was. And that's how they lived at this time. The Imam would be treated in this manner day after day. But Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, one of the things that we gained that was better than anything else that we gained was true hope. The Imam would continuously ask people when he met them, he would say, Atazur al-Hussein? Do you visit Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? And that was something he would always repeat. Do you turn to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? He said, and the companion would say in one occasion, he'd say, he said to Imam Sadiq, he'd say, no, I haven't been able. And he said, well, do you hold ma'atim, do you hold majalis for Imam Hussein? Do you have a gathering where you remember Abu Abdullah al-Hussein? And the man said, yes. And then he would ask them to recite what they know, or what they mentioned and understood. And he would encourage them. Not only this, in one case where he would tell someone to read the majlis of Imam, and the man would read, and the Imam says, I don't want you to read it like this. He says, read it like your people read it. That's why wherever you go in every region, there's a different way where people in Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Do it in the way you do it. He's the one that spread the majalis and made sure people would remember. And in fact, if it wasn't for what he would instruct people, people wouldn't be able to know, because that was the opening where we had the opportunity. After that, the doors became closed for narrating hadith. And the Imam would say to one of the companions in this, he would say, Rahimallah dama'atak. May Allah have mercy upon what? Your tear, one tear. He says, why? He says, so surely you will see آبائي وإنك ستجد آبائي عند مماتك. The one that cries over Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, he says, you will see my forefathers. You will see Muhammad ibn Ali. You will see Ali ibn al-Hussein. You will see al-Hussein ibn Ali, Amir al-Mu'mineen, al-Hassan ibn Ali. You will see Rasulullah on your day where you die. He says, for crying, إنك سترى أو ستجد آبائي عند مماتك ووصيتهم ملك الموت بك. And the wasiyah that they give to Malik al-Maut. Imagine the angel of death is coming to take your soul, and they come and say, he's one of ours. You look after him. Don't be too harsh on this person. This is what the Imam is saying. He says, وَإِنَّ مَلَكَ الْمَوْتِ لَأَرْأَفُ عَلَيْكَ مِنَ الْأُمِّ الرَّؤُوفِ لِوَلَدِهَا. And you will find that the angel of death, he said, will be more tender on you than a mother is to her child. For what? For a tear of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. One tear that you cry over Abu Abdullah al-Hussein salawatullah alayhi. This is what the Imam would call the people to. This is what the Imam would instruct the people. If it wasn't for him, there would be no remembrance of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in this manner. Most of the ziyaras you read are narrated on Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, and Abu Abdullah al-Sadiq alayhi salam, that reminds us of the Imam salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. These instructions were from there, from the teachings of Imam al-Sadiq salawatullah alayhi. And that's why when we gather to commemorate, not only are we indebted for our religion, not only are we indebted for this hope. You know, 2 days ago, 3 people in a village in Lebanon that I know, 3 people died from one family in a car accident. And I was sitting down, and I was sitting at home with my family, and I said to my family, I said, if you are someone that experiences such a tragedy, you lost 3 members of your family in one go. 3 members of your family died, they're all young as well, in one go. And you are a Christian, you are a Jew, you are someone that doesn't follow Ahlul Bayt. I said, how do you work with this grief? Allah Azza wa Jal, when we finish Ziyarat Ashura, what we do? The end of it, we do Sajdat al-Shukr. Allahumma laka. We ask what? Hamd al-Shakirin, don't we ask? Why do we ask this? For this musibat Abu Abdullah. If we didn't have this majlis, if someone loses a brother, we remind them of Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam. If someone loses a son, we remind them of Ali al-Akbar. If a youth dies in the early ages, we remind them of Al-Qasim. If an infant dies, we remind them of Ali Asghar, Abdullah Radiyah. If anyone is in any situation, someone is ill, we remind them of Ali Zayn al-Abidin salawatullah alayhi. This was the biggest gift that he gave us. Majlis Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, the one that consoles us during our calamities. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to console our hearts at this moment where we are all not happy because we are missing our Imam. We are suffering from the absence of our Imam. Allahumma inna nashku ilayk. We say what? Inna nashku ilayka what? Ghaybata waliyina. Salawatullah alayhi. That we are complaining to our Creator for the absence of our Imam. May Allah hasten the reappearance of our Imam and give us relief in our hearts and give us salvation. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma qul li waliyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan. صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتع فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات وإلى أرواح موتانا وموتاكم، رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
أحسن شيخ. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I prepared a short Farsi majlis, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Fatimata babiha وبألها وبنيها السر المستودع فيها بعدد ما هات به الملك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقادا وناصرا ودليلا وآينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. يا صاحب الزمان يا صاحب الزمان يا صاحب الزمان يا صاحب الزمان. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله. ما بوجود اللطفة مذهب نداشتیم در دین و علم این همه منصب نداشتیم. نورت اگر نبود به جز شب نداشتیم، ذکر حسین جان به روی لب نداشتیم. آری اگر که شیعه به پا هست و عاشق است، از فیض قال باقر و از قال صادق است. با گوشه نگاه تو ظاهر درست شد یا امام صادق، با روز خوانی تو شعائر درست شد. از ذوق توست این همه شاعر درست شد، از قطره ای ز علم تو جابر درست شد. یا آقای من در فکر شیعه بود همیشه دل شما، ماییم از اضافه آب و گل شما. شاگرد تو اگرچه چندین هزار بود، از آن همه چقدر برای تو یار بود. بریم سر سفره مولامون یا امام صادق، امشب یه اشک چشمی به ما بده. پیر مردی بین آتش از نوا افتاده است، رهبری تنها میان کوچه ها افتاده است. با رخی نیلی به یاد مادرش فریاد زد، ماجرای کوچه بهرم خوب جا افتاده است. ضرب سیلی جای خود، اما امان از حرف بد. پور زهراگیر مردی بی حیا افتاده است، دست بسته مو پریشان صورتش خاکی شده، با دلی پر غصه یاد کربلا افتاده است. دست بر زانو فقط میگفت یا زینب مدد، یاد آتش سوزی آن خیمه ها افتاده است. باز هم او مرد بود و هر دو دستش باز شد، یاد دست بسته و شام بلا افتاده است. درد زینب این بود در کل تاریخ بلا، امان از دل زینب. درد زینب این بود در کل تاریخ بلای غیرتی ها، کی 40 منزل سر از پیکر جدا افتاده است. بنت حیدر دید و کاری بر نمی آید ز او، یا ابا عبدالله رأس سلطان از سر نی زیر پا افتاده است. همچین که حمله کردن به منزل امام صادق دیدن حضرت داره گریه میکنه، گفتن آقا جان چرا دارید گریه میکنید؟ حضرت فرمودن همچین که دیدم این زن و بچه ها از حجره به این حجره میدون، یه لحظه یاد اطفال جد غریبم حسین کردم. لا یوم که یوم که یا ابا عبدالله. این زن و بچه ها حیرون شدن، رفتن نزد امام سجاد علیه السلام. آقا جان ما چی کار کنیم؟ حضرت فرمودن علیکن بالفرا. اما چی کار کنه زینب؟ بالای بلندی ها هوار کنم یا که سمت خیمه ها فرار کنم؟ من یه زن غریبم داداش حسینم، تیرها رو از تو تن در بیارم. داداش تو به من بگو نیزه تو گلو تو چی کار کنم؟ روزه ما را کسی درست نمیخواند، چه آمده بر سر ما کسی نمیداند. چطور قاتل بیرحم تو دلش آمد که در مقابل زینب تو را بچرخاند؟ هر جا نشستی از سویدای دلت صدا بزن حسین جان، حسین جان. السلام علی الحسین و علی علی ابن الحسین و علی اولاد الحسین و علی اصحاب الحسین. اسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم إلهي بحق محمد وعلي وفاطمة والحسن والحسين وتسعة المعصومين من ذرية الحسين وبدماء شهدائنا وبإمام زماننا. 10 times يا الله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك واكفنا يا قاضي الحاجات ويا كافي المهمات إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم أجل وليك الفرج والعافية والناس وجعلنا من خير أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه إلى روح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة الإخلاص والصلوات.